Well, hello, Patty.
Hello.
So thanks for.
What about me?
Hi, Tim.
Hello, Tim.
Can't forget Tim. So we were just chatting a little bit about, energies and things. We had a good conversation yesterday with Lisa on some things. And so Tim's been mulling over what energy might be bringing for us to talk about. Today, so.
Well, yeah, basically what I do, I tap into our energy. Whoever's going to be on the call, I try to, before the call, try to tap into all our energies and see what comes up. It's not my list, it's our list.
Nice.
And so I did that. I do that for Sheila and Lisa, and then I did that yesterday for the call with Lisa. And so I never know what's gonna come up. And so yeah, I've got a couple. Some of them seem to come off of those other items.
From yesterday.
Or yeah, just any items. Because I get an impression. I don't always get pictures, or sometimes I do. But it seems to be mostly an impression. I'll get like a kind of, okay, what is that? It's just an impression. And then I might get a few words, and then I start mulling over the words and see if it fleshes out. If it doesn't, which a lot of times it doesn't, then I just open myself back up to what comes next. And then if it fleshes itself out, then I write it down on my list. So the first one on my list is ancient things coming online. The impression I got was lots and lots of ancient things. When I say ancient, I mean thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even older coming online. Most of it's knowledge. Some of it's going to actually be ancient sites that we find here on this planet. There's also ancient sites throughout our solar system. Now, whether or not they'll be revealed anytime soon, who knows? But
when I think about the ancient, what came up for me as you were talking about that was some of the things that Patty and I and some of the other ladies have been finding and feeling into the sounds and songs and impressions of different healing modalities and different wisdom pieces that are coming online, whether it be light language or tones. You hear mantras and stuff like that, but some of the song that's been coming up even had some rhythm and some nature, very ancient melodies when they were analyzed. So there's even funneling through in that way.
Well, yeah, lots of ancient knowledge is just going to come online. You're just going to know. You're not going to have to learn it. You're just going to know about music, about frequencies, about food, about, you think about this. Each of our missions, why we're here, is ancient knowledge. It was done, many people were here for Atlantis and Lemuria, and the missions we received prior to coming here, we're talking about tens of thousands of years ago.
Yeah, and Patty, you've been talking about some of the information that's been coming through that you've been listening to from other channels and stuff like that have been ancient, hasn't it? Linking back to Lemuria and
Yeah, it's there's a lot of information out there. You said something a minute ago about we'll just know. So I'm just curious, do you think the reason for our knowing will be partly of our DNA upgrades, or do you think it's just tapping into the flow, or a combination?
Both, but a lot of it's going to be because of our DNA. A lot of the ancient wisdom was encoded into our DNA following Atlantis and Lemuria, and the wake up signals are coming,
Mm-hmm.
we're being activated, and those wake up signals are hitting us. They're based on energetics frequencies coming from the galactic center. And so today you don't know something, tomorrow you wake up and you know it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extensive. I'm not talking about little things. I'm talking about like life changing things.
Mm-hmm.
You just know that this frequency
As
will
this.
will heal you. If you find something with that frequency and you bask in it for a period of time, it'll heal you. It'll heal you, at least biologically.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that. Other things, like your mission. One day you kind of maybe, and the next day you wake up and you know so much more about why you're here.
Mm-hmm.
I see lots and lots. That's a cascading effect. So I see that where we activate each other and things come online.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think we're all here to help each other remember. Mm-hmm.
right, but we're at the stage right now where it's activation time. So that means the more you can engage with others, the more likely you're going to be activated.
Yes, definitely.
Because us coming together to do this video right now required me, or at least it led me to gather my impressions, and in so doing I was activated to put this list together, because I don't know where this list comes from. I mean, if I use 3D thinking, I have no idea where this list comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And yet every time we do a video, I've got these things and we end up having long drawn out discussions on it, and everyone seems to be nodding and everything. It's not, I don't, this is not Tim's list. You know,
yeah, exactly.
I'm tapping into something that's available to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because last night we were just talking, and we were ticking things off the list before you even said what was on the list.
we were like, oh, well, great, that sounds exactly like this one. But this one is big. The ancient things coming online. It's the signs are all around us. You just have to have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you do today or tomorrow or next week, there's no hurry. It's just a matter of, oh wow, where'd that come from? And then you start, because you put it in your path. Anything that you see or hear that is directly in you, your environment, you put it there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a reason there's no coincidences. So that's going to be interesting to see how that develops. And the impression I got when I was, is that this is like chapter 1, and there's many more chapters to come after that. Because the impression this was a bit more vague, but I had the feeling of meeting with other ancient beings that were relaying information about where we came from, what this planet's about, what are we doing here, what's to come, things of those nature. But I didn't get any details. I just got the impression of getting that information, and that time would come very soon for further details. And not just from me, but from anyone.
I think it's so interesting that that's the first thing you mentioned, and I think it was Daniel Scranton's channeling today that I heard him, the Arcturians, talking about the scientists, a lot more things being unearthed.
Mm-hmm.
And with their testings that they're going to test, that the scientists will test that the civilization is a lot older than they ever thought it was, and that they'll have scientific proof, and that's one of the things that'll bring it to the mainstream, that they're going to, with all the things that they've already started finding. I've come across a couple articles I can't think at the moment what it was they found, but I remember in passing saying, "Oh, that's cool," and then going on to something else. But he was saying that, yeah, they're going to be finding more and more things, and it's the scientists with their testing are going to be bewildered at how old and how old some of the things that they're going to find, and the civilizations and the information that they had. So it's so fun, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was one of the subcategories underneath this. And I mean, we've watched Graham Hancock talk about Egypt.
Yes.
Well, the pyramids are much older than they've told us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot more stuff. There are pyramids all over the globe.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
That are even older than the ones in Egypt.
Well, they found,
I remember.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, when we went to Belize, I think they said back then, that was about 8 years ago, that only 1% of the pyramids have been unearthed there. And even the fellow that was unearthing them, I think he was English. They didn't have anybody from their country. But when you fly from one part to another, you see all these mounds and there are pyramids under there. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Well, and they had the excavation of that civilization, they said was 14,000 years old or something in up off of the coast of Alaska.
Oh,
you remember that? It was about a couple years ago. And then recently there was something they said they found. I don't remember if it was skulls or what it was. It was like 50,000 years old. And so it's they're finding these things, and they put the news articles out, but there's no fanfare about it. You know,
yeah. It's funny how that is. It's like, oh, okay, this civilization's 15,000 years, and then there's like, is anybody paying attention? You know,
it's like, wait a minute, let me do the math on that.
Well, how old did they say Göbekli Tepe was?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember now.
I don't remember exactly, but Göbekli Tepe is supposed to be older than Egypt, obviously.
Yeah, and way past. Actually, it was way past when we were supposed to have been hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
So, but they showed that they had actual tools and things like this, but the civilization,
like 25,000 years,
dated way back before what they say. You know, humans we were using tools.
And the interesting thing is, they had drawn these. They had these columns, and they had written on them symbols and whatnot. So it wasn't just that there was a bunch of farmers that got together and, chiseled out some pretty pictures.
Yeah.
This was organized, and they even covered it up themselves so that it could be rediscovered later on.
So it wouldn't be destroyed.
Right.
Yeah, now I remember one of the articles that I saw. It was actually that they were testing, I believe, the DNA of octopus, and they said, I think it was at least 32 or 33 scientists have come to the conclusion that DNA could not come from Earth.
Nope.
And they said they'll be finding more things within the waters too that'll prove that these are not animals or beings or mammals that could have originated here. So that's all fun and interesting too. Yeah. And I was going to mention, you'd mentioned skulls. I saw this in passing too. I don't know if it's a gathering Bashar's already had, Darylanka, but it's going to be on the 13 skulls. And I think it's a one coming up, which I'd be curious to listen to, because I think the 13 skulls, I'm not positive, but kind of think, remembering hearing that they've found 12 of them. The 13th one they haven't found yet. But when they put that 13th one in the middle, that's supposed to do something. I think they were created by the Atlanteans, maybe even the Lemurians. But it tells, supposedly, when they're all put together, it's going to bring forth Earth's entire history to our knowing. That's one of the things about the 13 skulls.
What are you smiling about? Things fall into place.
Yeah, like from the list from yesterday.
Yeah.
Things falling in place.
Things falling into place.
That was one of my
and
items.
Unlocking, you know.
That was one of my items from previous video. Was the day that everything fell into place.
Very interesting. Yeah, I saw that on Bashar Singh. I was like, I'd like to get a recording of that when it comes through, because that would be very interesting.
Yeah, that would be.
The next item is light shows to begin.
Oh.
So this is going to be, obviously these will be, in fact, I think it's already started. Mr. MBB has been doing some of that stuff. So it's going to become very obvious, these light shows, that they're not airplanes, they're, they're not stars, it's going to become very obvious. And I believe that they're going to start, up in the sky, but they're going to go all the way down to the surface. And I think we've already seen some of these light shows, pink and purple and all that, but those were like the test beds, the test, kind of thing. And so pretty soon they're going to start, and these things are going to change colors so in such a way that no one's going to have an explanation for them. Nothing will fit.
Once he's been showing Mr. MBB 333, he's been showing some of them, they change color and they change shape. The ones that are actually being captured now, or as of late.
Now, what is MBB 333?
Yeah, it's a website that he puts things on there like the Schumann resonance, sky phenomenon, where they have pictures. People have captured pictures of odd things, out of what we normally would have seen in the past, and video. And he has a lot of other things on that site too.
Yeah, he did last summer. He did unusual animal behavior, and these were videos of animals
not acting normal.
I mean, moose, bears, birds. He had a bird came in, someone was filming inside a kind of like an office, and bird flew in, landed on the counter, and was acting like, ding, ding, hey, I'm here. Is anyone going to take my order? And it would just sit there, and they were just sitting there filming it. And the bird didn't go away, wasn't afraid. They had videos of people that people had sent in where animals were acting kind of groggy and whatnot. And they were able to go up to these animals and pick them up and go take them somewhere, because they were out in the sun and it was hot and whatnot. So
and the animals acting together like they were kindred spirits, or kindred, completely different animals, like a duck and a dog, and they were, just or with people, wanting to be up, touching people, unusual animals that normally aren't domesticated animals. So there was a whole host of things.
Remember the ones where people were filming from inside their house, and they were filming it through their front door, but they had like either a glass door or a screened-in door, and the animals were trying to get in. It was birds, I think raccoons.
Yeah, trying their best to get into the house. And it was not a usual behavior.
I think one of the ones was a man said that he was taking his, I think it might have been his granddaughter. She was really young, kind of like 4 or 5 or something like that. And they were walking around the house, and there was an animal there. And she said, "Oh, kitty, 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 kitty." He goes, "No, no, Connie, stay back." And it was a skunk, and there it was following them.
Yeah. So he had the animal behavior. He does YouTube video channel too, and he had unusual animal behavior, and then he watches the Schumann resonance, and he has that posted a link there. And then sky phenomenon has been growing
Oh, that's
over
huge.
the last year. I mean, just the
Yeah.
colors in the sky, the craft that's being seen. The lines are triangles, like clouds in the sky that don't look like normal clouds.
Yeah, you shouldn't be seeing straight lines
Yes.
in the sky, but there they are. We're filming them, and so
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend. He's got his main site, which is MrMBB333.com.
Mm-hmm.
So that thing has all kinds of stuff on it. There's a link to the Schumann resonance graph. All these links to
stuff,
yeah. So there's that, and then he's also got his YouTube page, which
Nice.
I check that every day.
I had heard of Suspicious Observers before and had watched his YouTube for a long time. Now he's got quite a big website with a lot of information too.
Yeah, but you got to watch him. He's
we used to watch him
he's
all the
disinfo.
time.
Gotcha.
We watch him all the time, but there's some things that make us,
Aren't kosher.
yeah.
I mean, I think he puts out a lot of good stuff, and like any website or whatever, you got to look for the nuggets. You can't thing at face value.
But he does a lot of research.
He does.
Stuff that,
He does, and he's a good speaker, and I think he's got some nuggets there. But there's some stuff that we've caught him on that we know, and he even.
Do you remember the Mars one?
Yeah, the Mars one. I don't know if you remember back a couple months ago.
No, I haven't seen him lately. I used to watch him a couple of years ago, fairly regular. So I'm not familiar with what he's been doing the last several months.
Well, he wasn't the only one to cover this topic, but basically what he had put a video out on was
some pictures of Mars, right?
Pictures of Mars with what looked like a smoke trail. You know, it's from outer space, you know, so to be able to see it that means it's got to be pretty huge. So it was
like it was coming out.
Yeah, it looked like it was like a volcano or something like that. It wasn't, but it looked like it was because it was coming out of a mound or whatnot. And basically he was saying, "Oh, don't worry about this because this happened the same time last year, although the content is more, this is water vapor, so it's not that big a steam or something, not that big a deal." And one of his first commenters said, "You know, it's kind of funny. 5 years ago," or whatever he said, he goes, "if any mention about water on Mars would have perked everyone's ears up or caught people's attention or whatnot, now we're basically downplaying
it's just
hundreds of millions of cubic inches of water, steam, just creating this trail this plume that's probably hundreds of miles long, and it's no big deal." And you know what Ben Davidson, who is Suspicious Observer, he actually responded and said,
well played.
Well played.
That was his response. So he does put some good information out there, but
we used to check his site every day. Now I'm down to maybe once or twice a week.
Yeah.
I'll glance at it and see if there's anything that resonates with me or whatnot. Oftentimes I'll check it and won't even watch anything.
But we've talked about this on a few other things too, is like, but we don't poo-poo insight for people that are just getting to learn things about what's going on with the sun and
Starts
stuff like
making
that.
them curious.
It's a place to go, right? So we've discussed the fact that we've had stepping stones over the years. We followed a certain thing and we read it and followed it for a while, but then our consciousness and our awareness kind of expanded beyond it. And then we look at it and go, well, that's not really fitting anymore, but something else will come along that further expanded it. So, I would never dissuade anybody from, like, especially if they're just getting started trying to figure out some of this stuff. He was one of the earlier ones.
Yeah, and
stepping stone,
he's mainly covers things going on with the sun.
Yeah.
And major
sunspots and stuff.
And major
flares.
So.
And earthquake prediction maps.
And we watched him.
That's it's good.
We watched him for years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would recommend someone who hasn't been watching the sun or paying particular attention to earth changes. Good site. Just like I would say with any site, anything put out there, any article, don't believe everything you read.
Yeah. Just see what resonates with you and follow whatever sounds interesting and see where that leads you.
Exactly, because he has information out there about which was interesting about the early on for me, especially, was the connection to health issues. What happens in the sun and the KP index, and the scientific evidence of how it's linked to heart and brain and stroke and, all of those impacts that, no, we don't really learn that, in school or in science or anything, but he actually has the research out there. So there's a lot of good information there.
Yeah, and I think he talked, I know Mr. MBB covers it, but I think he covers, for a long time, growing up, all we had to worry about just UV. We just talked about UV. We didn't know there was an A and a B.
No.
Later on, we found out there was an A and a B. A is less harmful than B. B is a little bit faster, so it gets a little bit deeper. And so, that's all we thought we had to worry about. And then all of a sudden, we learned about UVC.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember, we've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. Growing up, the sun was yellow. Even at high noon, it was yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at it. It's white.
Yeah.
So how in the world does a sun during one lifetime change color?
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember noticing that like in the early 2000s. And I think, and I always had the thought that it was because it's ascending too. This is an interplanetary ascension. But I've also heard it's because we've also entered the photon belt. And that it's because of all the particles and things in there as well is also part of why we see it is white. So, I have no idea.
Right. Well,
it's interesting.
I agree with you. But the thing is no mainstream media is talking about it.
Oh, no, I know. I know. There's a lot of things they don't talk about. I remember when I was a kid, I remember in the early 70s, them talking about they can change the weather. And they talked about this. They can control the weather. It was big stuff. They talked about this for like 2 years. And then all of a sudden they didn't talk about it anymore. Like you can't. And I remember saying, well, can't we control the weather? Everybody's, like, what the hell are you talking about? I remember those. I remember seeing that stuff on TV, as well as I remember when we were little, they talked about living near the power lines, how unhealthy it was. And then before too long, oh no, where'd you hear that? And it's like, that's why you don't hear stuff. Because when it doesn't, it's not making somebody money. You're not going to hear about it anymore. Exactly. Or if they need to use it to manipulate something or whatever, it's just interesting.
Yeah. So, but it's just, one day they'll cover it and I think that's when it'll grab our attention going, what? Mainstream media is talking about how the planets don't rotate around the sun like this in a circle. Mm-hmm. They actually are following behind it as it moves. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're in a spiral because they're attached to it, while the sun is basically a comet going through the galaxy. And now the reason it's changed colors is because it's in a higher energy area of the galaxy, and that stuff that it's plowing through is burning off of it, coming around it, and that's the heat we feel. The sun doesn't actually provide heat.
But isn't it interesting that I don't know, I just do think it's interesting that shouldn't people our age remember the sun used to be yellow and now it's white, just like you think of all the other things, like I know that's not a Mandela effect, but with the Mandela effect stuff, you talk to people about other things, it's like, really, you don't remember that? You don't remember that? And I know we could all be in different timelines and stuff, maybe they really don't. Maybe they remember the one that supposedly is what our history says it was now, but it's just interesting in general. People don't, sometimes I think I changed planets a long time ago. Clearly we have, but whatever.
Well, we talked about this before, is that I don't know how many people are actually on this planet. I mean, real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Let's say that there's 5 billion people on this planet. Well, that means there's 5 billion different truths. Because no two people have the exact same truth.
That is so interesting. I wrote this on here, I don't know how long ago. I probably got it from Bashar or something. I don't even remember. It says, since I just looked at it and haven't looked at this pile in a long time, it says, the more we seek truth, the more we come to know there are no untruths. There are only choices in the existence of free will. In this existence of free will, we each have unlimited potential. The truth is incomprehensible. We have to intend and put into motion the ability to create.
So we all create our own.
Yeah.
Yes, we all create our own reality. And we all have our own version of what that reality is. And there's no right or wrong about any of it.
Well, that's what we're doing. All of us are manifesting. We just don't know. We don't seem to have control over it so that we can directly manifest. But it is with our intent. But also, we're like, why did that thing happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? Well, it's because your higher self's trying to get your attention.
And we're becoming, hopefully, more and more aware of how it is we are creating and have been creating. And that awareness will help us to be more powerful creators of intention of the things that we actually want to manifest into our reality and existence.
Yeah, I think we're all here, obviously, to experience a reality, whatever that reality is. But within that, we're all co-creators. We can create by ourselves. But I truly believe why there's so many of us is because we want to co-create.
Yes,
I think
so too.
Mix with other people, and
because it's fun.
Exactly.
So that's what I think I think we're in the process now. What the I guess the powers that be or powers that were, what they've been doing is trying to segregate us and separate us and keep our powers and our history away from us so that we wouldn't. And they knew it wasn't sustainable. But the longer they could keep it in place, the more they could feed off of us. But now their time is running out and they know it. And now they're becoming more desperate.
Yeah, and that was an interesting game while it lasted, and apparently we wanted to play it for a while. It's just I think the new game's going to be a lot more fun.
Yeah, it served a purpose. I said in another video, our higher self says, okay, are you done doing it the hard way? Because we've got the easy way when you're ready.
Yeah. It's just like Abraham Hicks, what they used to say, that they loved watching us in amusement on the other side because we have become masters of limitation.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've done it so well.
It's like, well, I didn't think about you being able to do that to stop yourself. Okay.
Well, I wonder if we've all been stuck in a Truman Show and they've been watching us going, no, choose the red one. Don't choose the blue one. No, don't do that. And they're just,
They're going like,
Or realize that you don't even have to choose either one of them. Start creating your own.
yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah. The sun question you had was, it's interesting because anytime I ask people, like, do you remember when you were younger, the sun was yellow? They'll say, you're right.
It's
but
like
it's like they don't,
Well, it's the same with the chemtrails. It's like for, 15, 20 years, we've been seeing this. That's not how clouds used to form overhead.
No.
They used to like roll in with breeze or, other things used to happen, but they didn't like happen like that. But people are like, it's always been like that. And it's like, no, it hasn't.
Well,
That little trail used to dissipate behind a jet or, you know what I mean? Oh, no, it depends on. It's like, whatever. Doesn't really matter.
It goes to prove that not everyone has this, not everyone's woke at the same level.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. And that's okay, too.
Yeah.
It
And
makes for a more interesting game.
Yeah, exactly. But some of us are here to shine the light.
Oh, sure. And to help those, we wanted to wake up first so that when everybody else starts, it won't be so hard for them. Because it wasn't any fun waking up first.
Especially not with the energies of the planet.
No, it wasn't any fun.
Yeah.
I was glad to wake up, but it was rough.
Yeah, parts of it are, let's just say, less fun than other parts.
Especially in the early days.
But at least now that I know what's going on, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's just a symptom,
Oh, I think it's all a lot more fun than the reality I used to believe was true.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just the breaking through the cocoon piece that was the painful part. Ripping it out.
Knowing that foundation was not real was hard, but I think even with that, it was a lot easier than continuing to live in that density and that lie, that oppression. I never wanted to be here before I started waking up, so I just think it's exciting.
All the things that are coming, and the things that are already appearing now. Yeah, I'm much more interested in this world now than I've ever been.
It's much more fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Plus all the stuff that I've seen when I put this.
When you dream and put your list together. Yeah.
Very interesting. The next item is colored rain. So what I was seeing were rain clouds, but they had multiple rainbows in them. Some of them were pink colored, some of them were kind of bluish purple, and people were noticing them and going, wow, that's interesting. And they weren't scared or anything, but it was just, oh wow, that's pretty. And then they got overhead, and then they started raining, and those same colors were in the puddles.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, it's interesting because the conversation today with the storm we had come through yesterday, one of the ladies talking today said she walked outside and she said it was the most unusual colors in the sky, and there was a double rainbow. And she said it was beautiful, and they were so vibrant. And she said colors that she'd never seen on a rainbow before. So it's interesting you're mentioning that.
Well, double rainbows are going to be like so 5 minutes ago, whatever. They're going to, it's double rainbows are eventually going to be no big deal because they're going to be so many rainbows for those people who have eyes to see. So, but I saw a lot of this going on. Just completely like pink clouds and then purple clouds. It was just wow, just mesmerized people. And then other people just walking right by, they weren't even paying attention. So, so that was that. The next one is finding your breadcrumbs. We kind of talked about this a little bit. What are the stuff that you put in your path? And
Helps remember to bring you home.
What's that?
To bring you home.
Yeah, what's it? Finding the reason for those breadcrumbs and then what you're supposed to do next. That information is going to be coming online, and more so, provided you stop and think about it. You stop and focus on it. Most people don't. They keep repeating the same sequence every day, and they just don't. They don't really spend a whole lot of time on why these things keep recurring within their space.
Well, the daily habits get in a groove, and it's like you don't even a lot of people don't even recognize those little breadcrumbs that come up. It's like a different thing in the sky or something alongside the road that's different, or they're so focused on the path going on that the extraneous little things that are signals don't come into their even awareness unless it's big.
Well, it's more like the dog pooped on the carpet. I mean, it's kind of like, smack that dog, and then, and they get mad and they don't go stop and go, hey,
why did the dog?
Should have took him for a walk.
The dog never does that. So what's going on? Is the dog sick?
Yeah.
What's going on? And not take it personal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and to get curious and well, let's give them an idea. If somebody happened on this and needed to, well, how do I not, get dressed in a different order tomorrow? And then start getting curious about, start being a little more playful, even though you don't think you have time, and start getting more curious and intrigued about things that happen in a more fun way. Get more curious about, instead of getting, mad or frustrated, start getting curious and start looking at things with those kind of eyes and that kind of a mind, and just play that game for a week and see if things start to change in your life. That's what I would suggest to them. If they were like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, just start doing things out of order. If you usually get right up and brush your teeth, well, do something a little different tomorrow and brush your teeth and, and do everything in a different line. Usually put your socks on, you put pants on, put your however order, screw it up a little bit. Tie your left shoe first instead of your right shoe. You know what I mean? Just the littlest things can start getting those neurons moving different, and then just start getting curious about stuff and start remembering to be a little more playful and just, instead of just reactive.
Yeah, because it opens up different pathways, with
Yes.
the brain and with everything, your awareness, it opens up different pathways. And unless you put something there to do that, or you cause something different to do that, you're going to just run through that same autopilot.
And nothing will be different.
Right.
It'll just keep being mundane. And instead, it sounds like a silly way to go about things, but I think after a week of that, as much as they could, they'll be amazed how things can start to change in your life. And then perhaps they could start saying, ooh, maybe that'll open up some more doors. And then eventually maybe they'll realize, I'm resonating at a different frequency. That's why these things are happening. Right now they might think, well, that sounds like crazy talk. But it's actually how we create.
Well, it's breaking out of your programming.
Yes.
All of us have programming.
Oh, yeah.
So doing things out of your norm is giving you a chance to see the impact that your programming has had on you. So to me, at a minimum, just whenever I think of like, I've been doing the same thing for the last week, I'm going to do this and change things up a little bit just so I can see what the impact is. Now, it may be, I may end up going, you know what, this is not helping me or whatnot. I'm going to go back to that. And that's fine. I have that ability to do that. But at least give things a shot and see what see what kind of catalyst it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
now this one is pretty interesting. Returning humans. Yeah.
Okay.
These are humans that are coming back to this planet. They were somewhere else,
From from somewhere else.
all over the galaxy.
Mm.
There's humans all over the galaxy, and some of them are returning because they've heard what's going on. And it's taken some of them this long, or they've been they planned it down to at what frame, at what point do they want to get here?
From a timing standpoint, or
From an
condition.
events point of view, like if after this event, before that event.
So returning humans from, like, you mean humanoid, like from other beings, or earthling? What do you mean returning humans?
Well, genetically, they're humans just like us. And we were seated here.
Yeah.
But this isn't the only place
we are seated. Yeah.
Seated. So these are other humans that are genetically 99.9% just like us.
Okay.
That have lived elsewhere. And so
I've been hearing a lot more about here, that there are already, a lot of hybrids here. Which, I mean, I'd always known there were hybrids, but I wasn't really thinking about them already living and interacting with us. I've been hearing a lot more about that lately. So I think that's very interesting too. I mean, I think it's awesome. I wish I knew, you know what I mean? I wish I knew who was, because I think that's just so awesome. But yeah, that's curious.
Well, you think about it. I mean, you're human right now, but you didn't start out that way.
Oh no, been a lot of different things.
Right.
Whatever you call them, from whatever was natural to whatever planets and star systems we've all inhabited.
Yeah, so there are plenty of other beings that either started out as something else, because you think about it, biologically speaking, we are just a suit of clothes, because I am not my body's not me. So sentient souls go in, they choose to inhabit a biological unit if they're down in these lower density dimensions. And so we don't think of like what species our soul is.
Right.
Because our soul doesn't have a species. If you go at that level, we're all a spark of source. So to say I'm human is not really true.
Oh, we're human in this game.
Yeah.
Right.
This experience, this lifetime experience. So when I'm focused on at the moment is human.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
our vehicle is a human body.
Right. So other human vehicles are coming home, because this is considered the home of humanity. Now, I don't know if there are other home planets for humans throughout the galaxy or the universe. I don't know. But I believe that a lot of beings out there consider this primarily the home world of humans. So a lot of humans are going to be coming or are coming home to experience this
ascension event.
This ascension process.
Gaia's ascension and ours as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because of the ascension of Gaia.
How can you separate them?
Yeah, this is true.
You can't. I
You
mean,
can't.
do you say this is just Gaia's ascension and we're just on for the ride? We're like ticks on a dog,
Mm-hmm.
or I say, well, one doesn't work without the other.
Mhm.
Well, from what I've heard is that there have been, other civilizations on Earth and in this universe that have ascended, right? But a planet doesn't ascend as often as a species. And like even on this Earth, well, I mean, where'd the Mayans go? Well, I believe they ascended to fifth. There have been other civilizations or beings that have ascended to fifth on Earth. But the fact that we are choosing, that we at this time are ascending with Gaia, that is very, very rare because first of all, a planet ascending is rare, but that we're actually going to ascend with her. From the things that I've heard, I mean, who knows, but the things that I've heard, that's a huge, huge deal because it's never happened in this universe before.
Mhm.
Species actually with the planet. So it's very interesting.
So they're coming back to experience.
Especially from the depth of, of density that we were at, that's one of the reasons this is such a big fanfare for all those watching what's going on and how we're choosing that it's going to take place, because we really have creative input on how we want to go through this process.
Mhm.
Even though we don't, we have no idea what all is it going to entail. Well, we don't really know, but we can help create it with the energy that we want to put into it, that we want it to be with ease and grace, and and to bring it, that it'll be smooth, a smoother transition than you could even, smoothest, let's just go ahead and say it. Let's make it one of the smoothest transitions that has ever even happened, if possible, right? Why not?
Why
Because
not?
it'll still be mighty exciting, let's just make it smooth. Let's start putting that out there and envisioning that it'll be a smooth, amazing transition for the whole collective as well as the planet. She'll take care of herself.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of beings after or during the process of Atlantis and Lemuria crumbling, a lot of beings left the planet,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of them are going to come back. They knew this day was coming, or this time was coming.
Mhm.
A lot went in Earth too.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we found it interesting that Atlantis and Lemuria were actually fourth and fifth density.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, wait a minute. So Earth has been.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of course we think in linear terms. So
Yes.
we put everything. Well, you got to start in second grade and then go to third grade.
Yeah.
No. So a lot of the beings. There are a lot of human beings
Mhm.
that are coming back that were here before.
Mhm.
They just left as Atlantis and Lemuria were crumbling. So
Mhm.
there's going to be those too.
Mm-hmm. And there were life cycles on Earth before Lemuria and Atlantis
Exactly.
too. So, and a lot of those beings that have already gone to fifth or sixth or whatever, like a lot of the elementals too that were around during the Atlantis, now they're coming back to help us, to assist us with these things that we're experiencing now and starting to remember to play with and create. So it's very interesting.
Help us relearn, and remember the magic.
Well, this item, I was specifically saying humans that had been humans before, because all the others we kind of already have talked about. They're already out there. They're talking to us. They're feeding information to those who can hear and whatnot. But when I heard this, I was like, I heard like humans coming back, and I'm like, humans, like humans like us, yeah,
Mhm.
humans coming back.
Mm.
They'll come back and they'll,
Mhm.
you know, we'll run into them, not right away, but eventually, and we'll find out that yeah, I was just living in, in the Pleiades or
Mhm.
wherever, and we knew this time was coming, and we put a vacation together to
Come
to
experience.
come experience it and whatnot.
We bought a ticket for the ride.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you must be this tall to ride this ride.
Yeah,
So that's kind of,
cool.
you think about it. I don't know. I think every day I think of myself less and less as a human. I mean, I understand the role in this play right now is I'm playing the role as a human,
Mhm.
but there's another part of me coming online that basically knows that's just a role. That's just a small fraction of what we are, and starting to feel the enormity of what we really are. And it's starting to overshadow the role that I'm playing.
Mm. Yeah, that's the spark of source
Yeah,
element.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
Yeah, the I am that I am. You're
right.
starting to
Mhm.
really embody that.
Mhm.
Nice.
all right. So the last item is bridging the gap between now and intent.
Between now and intent. Okay.
Why'd you laugh?
Because it's like instead of now and the future, it's now and what your intent is.
So think about it.
Hmm.
Break it down.
So if your intent creates your future, and you're heading
So contrast that with now.
now, yeah. So where are you going? Yeah.
Because saying now
So
and
where
the
are you?
future is so
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
so you can go as far as your intent will take you.
Yeah, so I guess what is then? Feel what is your intent. So if you have an intent, so whatever your intention is, just feel the energy of that intention and then so now just keep feeling that energy of the intention. Is that how you intend?
Right. Yeah, it's like a loop, right?
Well, like I said, the other item was finding your breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
So is it your intent or is it your higher self's intent? I think
Well, hopefully we're getting to be the same because hopefully our percentage is getting closer and closer and closer, and we're a hell of a lot more of our high self now than we were 5 years ago.
right. But until
So,
then,
yeah, till then, they're still leaving us a few breadcrumbs and wondering. I'm sure he's going like that on my head today.
yes. But so, like, what is your intent until you are combined with your higher self? What, like, while you're playing this role, and you're getting these breadcrumbs and these clues and whatnot,
Mhm.
what what are we doing?
Yeah, because what comes to me, what keeps coming is, are you open or are you closed? So your intent is like, oh, that'll never work. We can't do that. Blah blah blah. Yeah, and then that's what you're gonna get stuck in. If it's open, like, well, anything's possible, or why not this, or then you're gonna have a different
Right.
journey.
So when you are finding these breadcrumbs and these stepping stones and whatnot, are they yours? Or are they your higher self putting them there for you?
Yes,
Okay.
both.
Yeah,
So,
I see them as both too.
so whose intent are you following? Is it really yours, or are you just a shard of the bigger intent?
But well, what comes to me in that is when I agreed to have this experience, it was me outside of this. So it is me and my higher self because we are one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and knowing that, our high self, that aspect, the higher aspect of us, that, yeah, they'll send breadcrumbs, but even when they send breadcrumbs, and sometimes we get them and, ooh, I get it, and that's fun, and that's going to lead me to this other breadcrumb, even if we don't, they don't get pissed at us. You know what I mean? They'll throw out some more breadcrumbs, but we did come down here to have an experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We do have free will. So, even though we did come and we might have said, well, I want to experience this, this, that, and the other thing, we've all come with different things that we wanted to experience because we're all on our soul's growth is, we're all, no matter what it is we're doing, we're always adding to the recipe, so to speak, or the flavor of our souls or our oversouls soup or whatever you want to call it. That no matter what we do, all that experience, all these things that we experience, they add to the grander experience that our oversoul is feeling. So even if, we might send breadcrumbs and, okay, today I'm going to enjoy that, because it is a little different when you get in the game, right? We can't get upset with ourselves if we didn't see that. We have that free will still, but I think, yeah, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah.
I can keep going around in a little circle.
Yeah, it's a loop, right? That's what I said earlier. It's like it's in a loop. Because the interesting thing is we aren't in this humanoid suit of ours are not consciously putting those breadcrumbs, but we, by our high connection to the higher self, are putting those breadcrumbs.
Yeah, because on the other side, we could have wrote a really long letter and said, will you leave this? You leave these? This. Eventually, I'll remember and I'll wake up. I'll wake up a little more when I see that one. Oops, I guess I saw it and I didn't. Nobody's going to get pissed at me about it. I got a lot more breadcrumbs coming.
So kind of what I'm leading into is, by discovering your intent, what are you discovering?
What your agreement was to come into this. Yeah, with your higher self.
What your higher self and what you put into.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like you, before we came in to this existence in, this incarnation or this series of incarnations, and we had an objective.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, experience different realities and whatever, and to learn and to exchange energy and all that. So we've been asleep for a long time, not knowing what our intent was, because basically all we've been trying to do for a long time is survive and is to just get through the day until tomorrow, and then I'll deal with tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's not a good enough reason to exist, at least as far as I think, as being a sentient being.
Yeah.
So what is waking up? What is that? It's discovering your intent. It's discovering more and more of your intent.
Your sovereignty.
Yeah, but can you have intent, full intent, without sovereignty?
No, because then you're really following.
You're following someone else's.
You're just following the circumstances.
Exactly. So that word right there covers a lot of different things, and that's why I used it.
Between now and your intent.
Yeah. Which is between now and when you're fully sovereign and matched back up with your higher self and have discovered your true intent.
It says bridging the gap between those two things.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We're finding our pathway between those two.
Yeah. That's what waking up is. Waking up is finding out who you really are, why you came here, and what is your intent for the big intent, not this little things like, oh, I want to learn, how to fly. Or, no, I'm talking about the big intent of the whole reason why you came here. And that's what we're working on. That's what we're waking up to.
And a little bit what Patty was talking about with the energy, because the more clear you get about your intent, the more you get aligned with that energetic, and it pulls it into you. Versus being confused and we get the chaos because we don't know what our intent is.
Well, you talk about free will. Yeah, if our higher selves are sending down clues and breadcrumbs and all this, we can pay attention to them or we can ignore them and do whatever. But the longer you go ignoring them, the more persistent they're going to get eventually, until the call to merge is too loud. Because our higher selves didn't send us down here thinking that we were going to be lost and we're never going to come back. They knew that everyone was going to merge back with their higher self and commingle in the collective consciousness. So the call has already been put out, and we're waking up. And that's what we're doing, is discovering our intent. We can say wake up, we can say, finding our higher self, but it's really finding your intent, your combo intent. Again, you can ignore it, but try doing it right now that you're woke. Try ignoring and going back the way you lived before. Try it.
I wouldn't want to. No.
It would feel miserable.
Exactly.
Too,
That's why I say once you start waking up, it's a process that gets kicked off, and you can't really undo it. You can't. You can stall out for a little bit of time, but eventually,
But once you start waking up, your joy is in the waking up. It's no fun going back.
Right.
But you're speaking for you.
I'm speaking for me, because I enjoy being happy. For me, it was miserable before. But I know everybody enjoy, peaceful or what everybody's got their own. Yeah.
Right. But there's people out there who are waking up and are kind of like we are. They're discussing these topics. And then occasionally they'll comment somewhere in a forum somewhere or whatnot saying, yeah, but there's a downside to this. I'm losing my family members. My relationship with them is falling apart, and people I've been friends with all my life, or me and my spouse are not on the same level, and our relationship is pretty much dead because we can't talk, because he wants to talk about what mainstream media is pushing out. And I know it's a bunch of crap. And so I don't want to talk about any of that stuff. So what do we have to talk about? When we try to find common ground, his is all from programming and all stuff that I know is, the stuff I got away from.
Yeah.
So we can't presume that everyone is going through this ascension just like we are.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, well, no, because everybody's in a different place along their path.
Well, and it does have an element of grief to it, of letting go, as you like you're talking about those relationships and stuff. The letting go piece, as you wake up, those things you have to learn are letting go and process through what would look like grief or feel like grief because of the change. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, sure. That part's hard. But like we started in the very beginning of our conversation, is that, I started this 20 years ago. So it's like, I felt a lot of that stuff then. But even that was a hell of a lot better than where I was before that stuff started falling apart. Because I didn't want to be here then. But I guess everybody looks at where they're at differently. And it's like, now that's all that part's so far away for me, and my, feels like another lifetime. But I understand that's another reason why we've woken up, because a lot of people are going to be going, as they wake up, that's where they're going to be. Those feelings that we felt so long ago when Yeah, it hurts when everything that you knew starts to fall by the wayside because it's not true for you anymore, and it's hard to keep hanging out with
Mm.
those people that are believing the untruth. You know what I mean? But I think it's also, like we were talking the last week, Gina, it's going to be easier for them because now there's more and more information coming where it's starting to become harder to deny that, what the possibilities of truths are. Because again, how much truth can we really know in this form? But the more and more things that we're finding out, that it's still got to be an easier awakening for these people, as hard as the emotional stuff
I
is
can't
as
say
people
that.
fall apart.
Yeah, I can't say that. I can't say easier. That's passing judgment. I can't,
Yes, that's right. I know as I was saying it, I was thinking the same thing.
because everything is
That's true,
relative.
because it's always hard.
Everything is
Emotional
relative.
stuff's always
What if
hard.
you find out? I mean, think about it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
one day you're part of this family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're married. You've got 3 kids, and you've got this extended family and
Yeah.
associations. And then the next day you wake up and you realize you're actually part of a bigger family that's from another planet. So you
Mm-hmm.
discover that, okay? And now you're adjusting about you're not just part, you were only biologically part of this family down here, but you actually lived many, many, many thousands of years on the
Mm-hmm.
other planet as part of this. Their families are much broader and they operate differently. So now you find that. So like where's your loyalty or where's your, so you start to discover that and that starts to fill out. Meanwhile you feel the loss of the relevancy of this family. Okay, so you've got that going on, and then that goes on for a while, and then you come to find out you're no, actually you, before those thousands of years you lived these other thousands of years in a completely different setup of where it wasn't based on duality or male and female. It was, it was, you were part of a collective and it was just, you're just a community member as I know. You wake up today and you're male. You wake up tomorrow and you're female. And, today my favorite color is green. Tomorrow my favorite color is purple. And so you're stepping further and further away from where you are or where we've been. I mentioned this a couple of times is we're as far from source. Again, I'm thinking linearly a bit here, but when you really think about it, in this 3D density, we're the farthest from source you can get and still be a sentient being. Because if you go down to 2D, what is 2D?
It's still that same amount of an aspect of source, though. I mean, I understand we see things as this is farther away from source, but it's actually not. I know that everything's got a veil. You know what I mean? It's just how much more of a veil does 2D or 3D or have, and 12D. 12D has a much thinner veil than 7D. 7D has a much thinner veil than 5D. And we have a thinner veil than 2D. However, they're all the same amount of aspect of source. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's all source. It's all source. It's not like, ooh, they're 12D now. That's a bigger piece of source. No, we're all the same aspect of source. We're all actually the same aspect of source. It's just, and then if you see, if like you're thinking like the 3D, like with Earth, how we really sunk into 3D. It's like, even those we think that their source too? Yeah, they're actually the same amount, same piece, same. It's not like source wanted to experience itself and he's going to put a big piece over here and big piece over there. He experienced the self. So we're all the same amount of aspect of source. We're all the same amount of source. And it's like really the way I see it is to what degree have people forgotten that? or what degree have beings or experiences forgotten that? And just because a crystal is, or a rock even, that doesn't have the consciousness of a crystal, is 2D. Well, actually, a rock would be different. Okay, let's say an animal. And I know then it's a collective, okay, well, maybe I'm not explaining that really right. But we're all the same aspect, same amount of source. And it's just to which degree have they forgotten. And it's like sometimes we think 2D things, well, shouldn't say 2D things. Well, yeah, because like crystals have consciousness. So I guess a crystal is different than a rock. But like an animal, sometimes we think, oh, we've got so much more source in us than horse or something. But really we don't. That's because they've got consciousness. It's just focused in a different way than us. At least personally, that's how I see it. I believe we're all source.
I find it interesting that you took what I said and basically equated it to me saying that I was talking about the size of source, which I didn't say. I just said we're the furthest away from source and still be sentient and have freedom of choice and be able to.
I guess the way you said we're the furthest away and still be sentient.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't, to me, that's what that sounded like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're saying that horses or crystals or what aren't sentient. Or are they sentient?
Right. I just didn't get to clarify further that what I'm
sorry.
We're the furthest from source. I didn't say bigger or smaller.
Yeah.
Right. There is no bigger or smaller. You're either a spark of source or you're not. And so I agree that we all are. Each density or dimension has its own set of circumstances and operating methods. 3D, I believe, is from the bottom, if you want to say 1D and 2D, whatever, is the first one where we have freedom of movement, freedom of choice, and that's why do you think the dark forces set up in 3D? It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that they set up in 3D. Now, I don't know what's going in 2D, but from my understanding, 2D is a much slower.
Yeah, lasts long, a lot longer.
Much more condensed, hence less movement. Mm-hmm. So this was just a setup for what I was going to take it. But I don't want to negate what's going on in 2D and 4D and 6D and all that. All of them have their own, I look at them as different movie theaters showing a different movie. And so there's different roles. There's different roles to play. There's different riddles to figure out and processes to go through and all that. So 3D, we chose 3D. Well, I've actually sat and contemplated, why did we choose 3D? Why did we choose to, apparently there are many other planets that we could have gone to, and we did, that were much easier to live on. Mm-hmm. Why did we come to this planet that is basically has been, a prison planet? Mm-hmm. Now, agreed, we said, okay, we signed on to come here, but that doesn't negate of what it is just because we signed on to it. So that's what I'm trying to kind of break down is, what does that tell us about what are we doing here, why we're doing it? Like, what is the trajectory based on what we know of the points that that resonate with us, like Atlantis and Lemuria. We know there were other civilizations here prior, but the ones that resonate with us and that we know, what does that trajectory tell us about where we're going? And then what is the responsibility that we have of gathering that information and then graduating with it through ascension? What is our responsibility about this existence and what we've experienced? Is this the first time we've come down to 3D?
Probably not. I mean, maybe for some, but I don't think so.
I have a feeling, this is just my feeling, that a lot of the sparks of source that are up there in the higher dimensions don't like to come down here to these lower dimensions because they're so restrictive. They only do it. It's kind of like picking that hard job when you're right for it, when you feel okay to it, because you know you need to go through that experience, and that if you don't, the longer you put it off, the more uncomfortable you're going to get, and you're going to realize there's so much you could have learned. Yes, it's going to be painful. Mm-hmm. It's going to hurt. But the longer you put it off, you're also going to be more uncomfortable and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. I think there's also that, and potentially, I mean, what I've felt is that knowing that this is the time that the planet is ascending, transitioning, that we agreed, several of the star seeds agreed to come to bring certain characteristics and skills and capabilities and incarnate here to have it in this realm for ascension purposes, to assist.
But why?
Why? It could be that there was a deficit that needed to be, or it could be that it was a reward for, learning things and you could actually experience it. It could be a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I think it's responsibility. We are responsible to Source. Yes. And ultimately, Source's creations, which include the universes and all the densities and dimensions and whatnot. So the call went out to basically say, this is going to be happening. Who wants to be involved? Mm-hmm. And it's not a matter of coercion or rewarding or whatever. The existence is the reward. Sharing, co-creating is the reward. Mm-hmm. Being a part of this process is the reward. We've forgotten that because we've been stuck in this lower dimension for so long. Because when you get up there in other dimensions, or down there, or whatever direction the dimensions go, time doesn't matter, or it matters less and less. So whether you're here for 1,000 years or 26 million years, right, it doesn't really matter. So it's what is your objective? Well, it can't be this person's objective because I can't see enough, and it would be arrogant of me to think my objective matters that much in this biological unit without being able to see at the level that my higher self is at. Now, I'm not saying I'm not important. I'm just saying all these things that I want I'm not thinking about my higher self. I'm just thinking about me. All the things that I want down here matter not in 5D. They don't matter at all. They don't. So these things are really kind of irrelevant. The only relevancy is my progress and my stepping stones and my building my intent back to my higher self and understanding the higher responsibility that I had and why I signed up to come here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, part of that, as we talked about, as you first start awakening versus after you get along the path some, I think when you start to remember that aspect is when the joy comes online. So that's when you start having fun in the ascension process. You start enjoying it more than it being letting go of things.
So that implies taking this set of things that may give you joy and replacing them with these things, because relatively speaking, these are more you than these. Because what am I here compared to when I'm back with my higher self?
Mm-hmm.
What am I? Am I less important? I don't know. I know that I see less, am responsible for less, know less, all the things that go with that type of thinking. Now, there's a reason for it. I came down here to play a role, and so that it can have an impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the energies that I'm collecting and sharing with others, and that's what's going on before I find my intent, which is my ride out of here. Not that I'm in a hurry to do it, but ultimately, the sooner I can know why I'm here, the sooner I can get away from my limited thinking and get back to my expanded thinking.
Mm-hmm. But not for the purpose of quickly getting out of here.
No, quickly doesn't matter.
Yeah, because
time doesn't matter.
It's kind of like we planned this grand adventure, and then we just want it to be over. And I think as we start to remember that intent and that reason, we don't, because I can remember when I first started waking up, I just wanted to hurry and get through it. Let's just hurry and get this over with. And now it's not, because it's very interesting to see the breadcrumbs and to see the others awakening and to play in the experiences more than what I did early on.
Granted, but you're still limited thinking. I agree with you, and that's your stepping stone, and that's good for each of us, and we do it in our own sense, but it is still limited thinking.
What's the limited thinking part?
I'm trying to figure out.
The limited thinking is I'm only responsible for myself. I can.
But you are only responsible for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not denying it. But what I know now compared to what I know as my higher self is limited. Because I believe that we have a higher. As a sovereign being, to get to be a sovereign being,
Mm-hmm.
Is accepting full responsibility for all of my acts and for what I know and the decisions I make.
Mm-hmm.
Until you have sovereignty, what are you?
Well, we always have sovereignty. It's just, do you remember it or not?
Right.
But if you
We're always a sovereign being. It's just that, do you know you are, or do you not know you are? We always are.
So you're a sovereign being while you're playing a role down here with limited knowledge.
Mm-hmm. We're always sovereign. And we always have that choice to step into it or not.
Okay, but we're not acting sovereign. So are we sovereign but not acting it? Or
yeah, it's just like, are we light and not acting it? Yeah, we can be light and act like we're total darkness.
Right, so are we going to address what we are? Or are we going to address what role we're playing? Because there's duality everywhere we go. We talk about people talk about, this is what I am, and this is the way they act. It's so there's constantly that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then that's there's not a balance there.
Right. So we're unbalanced right now,
Mm-hmm.
while we're still spark of source. I agree with that. But do we talk about things in a sense of what you are right now, the role you're playing right now, or what you are? Because if you talk about what you really are, then you should be talking from your higher self's point of view. But we can't, because we don't know it. Our higher self is telling us. It's trying to give us clues and everything. Hence, I know it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we here talking about? We're not talking from a higher self standpoint. We're talking from this lower self standpoint. No less important, but what do we know? And how responsible can we be if we don't know what our higher self knows?
So then, like, what's your real question?
That's what I'm saying. What I'm lost in what.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it's me, but I'm lost in what you're.
Responsibility. And we don't know what our full role is. So while we're playing this role that we don't know what our real mission is, what are we doing? What are we really doing? And how responsible and how sovereign are we being? Okay, so take that.
Okay.
And then all those things that we are, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? We're not our higher self.
Right.
So
we're finding our way back to it.
Right. But we already had it. We are it, but we're playing like we're not it.
Yeah, because that can't all fit in this.
Right. So if I know I'm not trying to be exact here. So let's just say our higher self is 100 units.
Okay.
And 100 units of knowledge and capabilities. And we're one. We're a shard. Right. And we're down here. What are we doing? Like really, what are we doing?
We're an actor in a play.
Right. Well, what are we doing? We don't have the responsibility. We don't even have the grandness or the vastness of experience at that level to know what we could be doing while we're doing this.
Only when we go inside and we listen to the higher self.
But we only get a fraction of it because it can't fit all in here.
Right.
So what are we really doing?
I don't know. You tell me.
We're playing. We're play acting.
Right.
We're having an experience for whatever it was we decided we wanted to experience in this 3D, 4D process. That's what we're doing.
Right, but we keep throwing in all these things that are at the grand level, the higher self level, but we're not there. We're here playing this role. So do we talk at the higher self level, or do we talk and keep playing this role and yes, expanding it? Because we are expanding it as time goes. So
well, that's the only thing we can do, because you just said it. We're not up here, so how can we be that? Right. We're allowing ourselves. We're learning to allow ourselves to open and flow and to be our high self more. But I mean, we can't just I got to be my self. That's one of the reasons that we're energy. So to be able to get in that space and that place where we're open to flow, so we can allow those higher energies to flow through us. That's all we can do at the moment. To be in that heart space, to live authentically, and to allow ourselves to really interact with those reflections that we're sending ourselves, those little breadcrumbs or reflections, whatever you want to call them. But so that I think, what are we doing right now? It is to just be in that heart space, to be real, to be authentic, to not be playing a part other than who am I really, what really resonates and makes me feel whole and complete and peaceful and here at the moment. What is that? That's what I think we're doing right now. And the more that we do that, and the more that we're in that space and in that energy, we're allowing our high self to flow through us.
So the ultimate goal is to get back to our higher self.
Well, that's where we're going. We're transitioning into Fit 5D. So I think at the moment, yes, that's our ultimate goal. But while we're doing that, what excites you along the way? Because like you said, you want to know what we're here to do at the moment. It's like, I want clarity to know, what is it I'm here to do? We hear over and over again, follow your bliss. Mm-hmm. And we think, oh, that's too simplistic. That's just stupid. Follow your bliss. Telling you, when we follow our bliss, that's what brings us back to the true north. It'll never lead us astray. When we follow those little things it makes me excited right now. That I'm not talking about in a
materialistic,
a materialistic earthly way. I'm talking about what makes your spirit soar. What really makes your heart happy. When we follow those things, right now, oh man, it's smelling this flower over here. And as I smell this flower over here, because I took a minute to do that instead of doing all these things on my to-do list. Ah, there's somebody's walking down somebody's walking down the street. Hey, how you doing? Well, we start a conversation. Oh my gosh. They just happen to know somebody that I was just saying, if only I could meet somebody, blah, blah, blah. You know how synchronicities and things happen. We open ourselves and our lives for those things to happen when we're following our joy, following our bliss. As simple or as mundane as they may seem to somebody else looking, whatever gives us joy in the moment or peace or whatever it is that's our next step up, that's the thing that will lead us to why we came here. Eventually it will bring us, it always brings us back to true north. Spirit has an amazing way to bring us back to what we really came here to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to get from limited back to unlimited.
Yes.
Ultimately what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because we're limited here because we don't know our full capabilities, and
right.
So we're
remembering along that path.
Right. I agree with what you're saying, but 99% of the people out there, they hear this and they don't know what that.
Oh, they think it's all folly. And it's all yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get to is get to the crux of the matter. Oh, come on. I barely touched you.
Get to the crux of the matter.
Get to the crux of the matter. This language you're talking about, which I completely agree with, but I've heard it from this person and that person and that person and that person with their YouTube channels and whatnot. It's not wrong, and I'm glad I heard it. I'm better for hearing it. But those words are not touching a lot of other people, is what I'm saying. They hear it and they think it, but I think there are some ways to cut through that to get to the crux of these things and not use terms like bliss and all that. Is what I'm ultimately getting to. Okay. Because my impression is we came here for a set of circumstances, things that needed to be completed, kind of marked off or to be gathered so that it could be brought back to source. That's complete. It's done. We're actually done. So now it's just a matter of the ride's over, and everyone's sitting in the seats. They won't get out of the rides. So it's actually time to get everyone off the ride. The park's closing. We're done for the day. We've finished. So now it's time to. Hence, why are we all waking up? Yes, we still have to go through this process. And the starseeds are here to help a lot of the people go through it, but more so to get through it so that they can get back to the higher self and then turn around and look back and go, oh, okay, now, because until then, a lot of them are going to be basically just swimming to try to get back to air.
It's the waking up and the getting off the ride is where all of the things that we've talked about, where what you believed in the past, you realize wasn't there. And that transition, that part of carrying them or holding space for them as they wake up and start to remember, and the tinglies start to come back, and they're, it's like when your limb goes to sleep, it's painful at first, and then it, the blood starts to flow. That process is what I believe the ones who have gone through it first are now going to be able to hold their space there for those people to wake up and get back to source.
Right, but how? This is what I'm trying to get to, is how. We've had teachings of Jesus and Buddha and all these others, and they've been here all along.
Right. But as these things are going to be, the truths come out, it's
the truth has been out all along. We just didn't have eyes.
But not everybody's been curious. And something else, though, to remember, Tim, that everybody's journey is valid. And not everybody from their high self, 5D self, when they chose to come in here and have this experience to go through 4 to 5, not everybody's choice was to go through this experience awake. So we're here to help the people that decide to wake up. But those that don't decide to wake up, it doesn't mean that that's invalid or they're doing something wrong or they're just stupid because they're not waking up. So we can't get upset about the people that aren't waking up, because some people didn't, their soul's choice was not to wake up on this journey, to go through this not awake. And it's like, it's all valid wherever they are. And our responsibility, as you say, is just to be in that place, in that space, for as they do wake up, if they happen to come across our path, we can hold out a hand and say, don't worry about those things are normal that you're feeling, or here's some information, here's something you might want to read that might make this a little easier for you, or whatever. But that's what we're here to do. We're not here to wake people up. We're here to assist the people that choose to wake up.
And the waking up, to me, with the truth I was talking about, is
you guys are funny.
What?
You guys are fighting me, and you're fighting.
Maybe it's the way you're saying it then, because you also lost me earlier, quite a while ago.
Expand beyond yourself. You can still, we are part of source. So what does that mean? We can turn ourselves outside ourselves and look back, and not affect what I'm doing here. I'm going to do what I feel compelled to do, and whatever resonates with me. But I can expand my thinking, and I can turn around and look outside myself and look at the bigger picture beyond one unit, which is one unit of me, and look and try to find that higher vantage point in order to really understand what's going on, from being awoke, being slightly woke, to being asleep, and seeing it from at least maybe humanity level.
And what are you going to do with that information?
Expand my mind, expand my experience. This reality, I can take this back to source.
Expound on that a little bit. So I don't really know what you're.
We're all one channel back to our higher self, okay? But I believe that some people are called to be multi-channel and be able to process more than what one channel does, especially if you've gone through ascensions more than once. So it's kind of the difference between being a student and being a teacher's aide, and then the difference between a teacher's aide and a teacher, and the difference between a teacher and a professor, and the difference between see what I'm saying? It's each student has their own responsibility to learn what they're supposed to learn, but the teacher's role changes per student. You can learn from each student and process that, and then utilize it for following students. So I'm expanding while I'm still one unit.
Well, I think that goes to a bit what I was talking about, holding space for people.
What does that mean? I don't know. Holding space.
That means being there to catch or interact with each one of those students and provide or guide or whatever it is that person who's waking up needs, that human needs to take that next step and that next step and that next step. So I think maybe terminologies are.
Yeah, I don't think we have the same terminology for some things. And if I can, I'm sorry, I'm going rewinding, but I have a question. About a while ago, you said that, some people waking up, it's going to be really hard for them because they can't, they have a family and this one's still in that 3D watching the news and arguing about these things. And then you start talking about, but then they find out they've got, but they really come from this star system, and then their loyalty. The loyalty thing got me. I don't understand why they would feel more loyalty, even though there's thousands in this is their family up here, and there's only like 3 or 4 here. That loyalty thing got me, because I just don't, you probably don't even remember what you said now.
No,
But I was like, why would I feel more loyalty for this, because there's more of them than this? I don't know. I guess that's where my mind went. It was still stuck back there.
it was a way to convey a message. I can understand getting stuck on the loyalty thing when I said that. It's you lived it your whole life where you are right now. What if you woke up tomorrow and your real mom that you never met, showed up at your door and basically told you, I'm your mom, you actually came from here. Here are your sisters and your brother, or at least here's some pictures, and you found all this out. Wouldn't you, granted, eventually you're going to get the joy that you have both those families. But there's going to be a transitional period of acclimating to that family and wondering about your loyalty to the family the only family you thought you had. That's all. It's not, I could have used sitting position. Like, I have a sitting position within my family, and then all of a sudden I find out that's not my real family. Now, the greater me is going to see beyond that and say, it's not that big a deal. And that goes back to kind of the other thing I was telling you. What are we really doing here? What's real, and what are we really doing? It's, if you get stuck in this 3D thinking, you would say, wow, yesterday I thought I was just part of this family, and I was sitting in this position within that family, and now I find out that's not even true. I built that existence, or that existence grew up around me based on
these parameters.
And now I find out none of that was true. I'm actually part of this family, and these are my siblings, and those siblings are not my siblings, but they serve that role proxy wise. At least I thought they were. You can't help but be impacted by that.
Kind of like a child who's found out they were adopted as an adult. It's similar. But that doesn't, make them love or have loyalty or whatever.
But this process would expand your mind, make you expand your mind. But while you still were living in this family, your mind's still going to expand. But sometimes a little catalyst, like finding out, none of that was true. This is true. It's actually different. Now you've been jolted.
Right.
And now there comes a time where you're kind of shifting back and forth and going, oh, and I just said loyalty, but but eventually what I think happens is you rise above both those, and you basically gather them both in and say, it's not relevant. Exactly. It's not relevant. I need to expand my thinking. That's what I'm talking about. What are we doing here? What's really going on? I'm saying we're finding that out. It goes back to the intent one. What is the intent? That is part of the waking process. We've only started the waking process. Tomorrow we find out we were adopted. The next day we find out that you're not even white. You're actually an insectoid that actually put this bodysuit on to serve this role. And then the next day you find out you're actually a fallen angel, or not even a fallen angel. You're just an angel. And then the next day you find out, oh no, you're actually a universe creator. These are jolts that are required. And I'm saying the jolts are coming. Because this existence is not real. It served as a proxy for us to learn. So what's the best way of getting out of a proxy? especially one where most people are brainwashed and they don't want to get off the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Jolt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be people, attendants, who are aware of this,
Mm-hmm.
who are waking up faster, or however you want to look at it. It doesn't matter. They have a higher responsibility. Otherwise, they turn around and just take care of themselves.
Yeah, which is the holding space piece. Yes. Yeah. It's turning around and saying, I've already been, I kind of see it here, and catching them and loving them through that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm
Well,
not.
part of
I
the,
think it's the terminology. I think it's just the term.
yeah, I
The
think so.
Yeah,
Or
the
the
terminology,
analogy.
that's a point thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was going like expansive beyond that.
And
I
part of
wasn't
the,
I wasn't disagreeing with what you're saying. I never did. I'm just saying, how does that fit into the whole responsibility thing, the whole expanding your experience, even beyond this one shard that I am.
well,
Well,
and
while
part of, I'm sorry.
while I'm only responsible for me, really. I'm only sovereign, but that's still 3D thinking.
But you are me.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, part of the waking up thing is realizing that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is, how do you climb out of this biological one shard unit and actually get higher perspective to where you get back to understanding we are all one?
Well, that's all part of the waking up process.
Right. That's exactly what that's what I was shedding the light on.
Oh, I never would have guessed. I'm sorry.
I thought about not saying anything about this. But.
No, I totally agree with we are seeing the all one and seeing us and that, and I get that. I think I was on the wrong analogy track with you.
But when I hear, when I've heard this many times, and I'm glad I did. When I hear people say we're all one, I go, okay, but I'm sorry, I'm here. How do I get there? How do I get to where I can live, breathe, exude that we are one? I can't from where I'm at
With
right
me,
now.
it's through energy. I think explaining energy to people is one of the easiest ways to see that. You know, quantum physics brought it home for me like 15 years ago. Oh, I got it. At least for me, for a visual, to be able to, because some people need to see things, you know, some way, be able to then start to feel it. So I think sharing things energy-wise with people maybe helps open up that door to be able to start to see, oh, because you can't not be connected.
So we have specific things that we could read to people right now, to someone who's either still asleep or just waking up, that they'll be able to go, oh, after we read that, and they'll understand being part of one and what this whole trek has been about and what we're doing and how.
No, you do it in pieces.
I know, but this is what I'm saying is I'm highlighting that
the curriculum.
Yeah, a possible path to understanding. People want it broken down, or let's say I would like to break it down. If someone started quizzing me and they just woke up, now it's not my job to wake them up. I'm not saying that, but they just woke up and they're like, I hear this about we're all one, and okay, conceptually, okay, I can understand that, but how do I get there? I mean, I'm here now and I'm only responsible for myself, and I can only think for myself. I can't think for you or you or you or you. So help me get there. Help me understand so that I can now have the perspective. I'll answer for myself. I do not currently have the perspective of the one, that we're all one. I do not have that perspective. I understand the concept and I understand that's where we're going, but I do not think in from that perspective back towards us.
Well, the thing is, you're saying what can we show them or they can read, and it's not going to come from here.
I know.
It's going to have to come as they open their heart and they start to listen and follow what it is that is their drive and their higher self is telling them in their heart. You could have tried to convince me 10 ways to Sunday intellectually, and I still probably wouldn't have agreed, when I was first waking up. It had to, it has to come with that heart thing. So part of it is you can tell them, but part of it is they have to find some of it through their own.
And that's going to be the answer for people all up and down along the spectrum, based on what your mission and role is. And you can find out by the way you answer these type of questions, and the way you perceive them and the way you address them. You find out. And there's no wrong there. Right. It's finding out, okay, you're a plumber, you're a carpenter, you're an attorney, it doesn't really matter, because one's not more important than the other.
Right.
So you can find that out by how you look at these topics.
Yeah, and everybody will be attracted to a different answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, because we all work so different.
Right.
Yeah.
I just found it funny that you both were instead of going, hey, let's go there, let's play with that space, let's expand that thinking or whatnot. You guys cut the space down, created a cul-de-sac, and said, okay, now let me show you why you're wrong, or why
I was lost.
No, yeah, I was lost too. You mentioned like 25 things in like 15 minutes. I didn't know where you were going.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Like you're going here, then you were going there, and then you're going here. And I was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm sorry.
I was sitting here listening. I couldn't converse. So, I mean, yeah, I can see what you're saying to some degree, but there was no thread I could grab.
Yeah, there were a bunch of threads. They were just.
And maybe it's me. I don't know, but I just.
Could be me too. I
didn't grab the thread, so. Yeah.
I had a beer earlier, and I usually don't drink. So. Me, for all I know. I have a beer about once every month and a half.
So you either had one too many beer, or you didn't have enough.
Clearly not enough. Usually one's too much.
Yeah. So basically what my impression is that I was talking about my mission, and you guys didn't understand it.
Well, I knew you were trying to breadcrumb me there, but the breadcrumbs, I was completely lost.
Yeah, I know.
So the breadcrumbs they were like disappearing, and so.
That's okay. I mean, they're like, again, we each have our own truth. I feel like some things have come together for me about my mission, and when I talk about my mission, no one else is going to understand it. No one else is going to understand it, because it's going to go counter to what your mission is, or it's just not going to resonate with your mission. And it goes to show you that your mission is inside you. When someone starts talking about their mission, right away, it's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, what? And that's what you guys were doing. Instead of, well, keep going. Let's see where that goes. You guys were like, okay, wait a minute, shut it down. Let's go back.
No, if I knew you were talking about your mission, it would have been fine, but I didn't clearly understand it like that. I thought you were asking a bunch, because it came out like you're asking a lot of questions, but then the questions would go into a almost statement into another question, and I didn't know what was going on for a while there. Sorry.
No, there's nothing to be sorry for. I want to create a space where people can go run off with where their heart and mind takes them, right. And you may not understand it. Like if one of your students came in to you, like,
but they would say, I want to.
So you just shut me off right there. Okay. That's what I'm saying. I'm not mad. I'm pointing out something. Do you have eyes to see and ears to hear when you do it? Or are you saying, wait a minute, what can I do in this? What are my options here? Instead of, I only have one option, and it's instinctual. Oftentimes we are instinctual. We just shut it down and say, wait a minute, I'm lost. I need to know where you're going. And it's kind of like, well, maybe we need to expand it even more and see where your calling is, where I'm just opening the door. I found this door for, I wasn't trying to, but I found this door. I walk in it, and then we visit it. I may be talking about this building you've never seen, about what artwork in it and birds and all kinds of animals and everything, and you're like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Instead of going, let's just see where he's done. Let's keep it playing and keep it and see what can develop out of this. See what I'm saying?
I do.
You don't like
but
it.
You started out, I'm thinking back, when you give me a question to answer, then my mind goes to
answer.
To figuring out the answer. So I think that's what stifles me.
So what was the question that
what is our mission? What is our purpose? Why are we here? And it was like, so I'm trying to answer that question.
It was about a student. If a student comes into your office.
Well, not even just that one I was talking about earlier.
Oh, before, yeah.
Yeah, she didn't want to hear that one, so she cut it off.
Well, no, the student one, I can tell you. They'll give me an idea of what it is we're going to talk about. And then I'll sit and listen. Because I kind of know the general, do they want me to listen? Do they want me to problem solve? Do they want, have kind of a general idea of where that's going? And I misread the initial conversation because I thought it was a question that I needed to give a response to.
Yeah.
Not something that you wanted to play with and expand, because I can hold space for that if I know that's the way that I need to hold space for it.
Yeah. At some point, you're going to have to forgive me. You're going to have to forgive me, because right now I've set you off, and because I've stuck you in something that made you uncomfortable, even if it was just being lost. Because where we're going is sometimes going to feel like we're lost.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually kind of dipped my finger in it and going, whoa, no foundation, no ground underneath my feet, and it makes you feel lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to go expansive on why are we here? Because I don't hear it talked about enough. I hear people saying, well, you'll find out, you got your mission, you're here to do what? I'm here to do what? What are we? Nothing really clear.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, we're all going to start talking about our missions, and they're all going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to handle that? I have no idea what you're talking about. Do you cut them off to say, no, if I don't have a common thread, then I don't really want to hear what you have to say. I'm not mad. I'm trying to make the pond bigger so we can include more fish. And then we don't exclude anyone, or we don't exclude something because the beginning it makes me uncomfortable. The beginning makes me uncomfortable, so I'm not willing to go the next step. Please forgive me I did not mean to make you uncomfortable. I was trying to open up a playground, an area that we could just, hey, what are we doing here? Like what are we really doing here? Because I think it's even grander than we can even imagine right now, because our imagination don't fit completely inside these biological units. But the closer we get to finding our intent and marrying back up with our higher selves, our imaginations are growing.
Mm-hmm. And if that would have been your intro.
Okay, so you're gonna.
Yeah, then I would have been a lot easier to stay on the ride. It was like,
no, I'm just saying
Yes, you did.
Launches the tip, but I would have had a whole different response.
Right. So I'm writing a book. I start writing it, and now you're telling me how I should have written it.
No, I'm just saying I probably would have closed that book a couple pages and if I didn't have a little more, sometimes they have to grab you in the first few paragraphs.
Yeah.
And that's what'll happen. I write a book and no one reads it. I'm perfectly okay with it, because the process of me going to writing that book
is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the kind of book it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I would have had to read the back cover to figure it out a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
Interested.
It would have been in Russian.
They got to go to Google Translate.
because that would have told me a little something about where it's going. So then I could have hung with it.
Right, but we have to have
Yeah.
we have to have all these parameters up front before we'll go somewhere.
No,
I
not
do.
necessarily.
I do it. I do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying
To a
we have to
degree.
start chucking that.
Because it's the orientation of what I'm going to orient my energy to.
3D mind tells you that you have to have that. Imagination says, tell me about fairies. Just start somewhere and just spread the story, even though they're showing me all these characters I've never even seen before.
Mm-hmm.
We're working our way there.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't occasionally stop ourselves and realize, I keep taking a left here. I keep taking a left. Every time I hit here, I just take a left. And why am I doing that? Is it because I'm jolted, or I'm telling myself I need something before I can go further? And so I'm limiting myself? I don't know. Because I do it. I do it all the time. I do it to you. I tell you, like, what? Wait a minute, who are you talking about? Like,
why are you saying this to me?
Like, why are you telling me? So I do it too. So I even when I talk about these things, it can be seen as being hypocritical, but this is how I learn my way out of it. All right, no more brain scrambles anymore. I'm done brain scrambling.
No, because I'll probably go to sleep and I'll wake up and it'll make perfect sense. But right now I have nothing to say about it. So.
Thanks for letting me share.
Sorry, I kept interrupting. Every once in a while, I thought you asked a question a second ago. But you didn't, apparently. So sorry, I know there's no sorries, but I'm sorry.
No, it went the way it needed to go for each of us to see it in the perspective we needed to see it in. So I'm thankful. I learned, and anytime I learn,
it's worth it.
I'm golden.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm good. There's more learning for me to come through sleep when I just let it go.
Yeah, follow us.
I'm just trying to figure it out. It's not helpful.
It's just funny how these type of things are gonna keep happening, because no matter how awake I am still brainwashed because of repetition, because of what has been pushed on me. I was born into a family, and before I became fully conscious, they had already set in stone all these procedures that I had to follow.
Yeah.
Whether good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. It wasn't mine. It was pushed on me from other beings. So
every single human being.
That's exactly right. We all have to come out of it. How we come out of it is our story.
And is it even possible in this? How much can we come out of it?
Yeah,
So
I hold out hope that it is, and that's why I've woke up. But who knows? But in the meantime, I'm going to try to write an interesting story. At least a smart-ass one. With goofy faces.
Oh, goodness. Silly. All right. Anything else we want to add to this one?
Nope.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording. I guess you want to hang on, Patty.